It's February 6th. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. My name is Vasyl Samokhvalov, and we start our next event, and we will be talking about Kazimir Malevich. Why specifically Malevich? We will talk about it with our guests. Our guests are Daria Onishchenko, Ukrainian-German filmmaker, member of Ukrainian Film Academy, and director and co-writer of Malevich the movie. Tetyana Filevska, creative producer of the movie Malevich. She's the art manager, curator, expert on works on Kazimir Malevich, author of the books Kazimir Malevich, Kyiv period 1928-1930, and Kazimir Malevich, Kyiv aspect, and Vitaly Azhnov, theater and movie actor, who played a lot of roles. He played in I.Franko theater in such movies as Gutsulka Ksenia, and lead actor playing artist Kazimir Malevich in the movie Malevich. So the question is about the movie, about its actuality, why, and why specifically during the war. Who will start? Well, maybe I will. Okay, so take the microphone. Why during the war? Well, we got the idea of the movie way before the full-scale invasion. During the war, I think it was year 2020, if I'm not mistaken myself, we started working on the script with Tetyana. Tetyana was making a documentary about Kazimir Malevich before that. She issued a couple of books which tell about his connection to Ukraine, his period, his Ukrainian period, and it was urgent for us to create the artistic movie who will which would tell about the connection of Malevich to Ukraine, why he paid so much attention in his art to Ukraine. And after the 24th of February, after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, our work was postponed, and the movie gained yet another aspect of urgency. And me as a director, I started looking at this story under a different angle. I think that all of us got our worldview a little bit turned around, and I started feeling parallels during with the time that Malevich was living in, and about the new genocide, the Holodomor, the genocide we're facing now. Well, I can only add that after the 24th of February, we all started talking more about decolonization, and this is something that we didn't do enough before the invasion, and the separation of ourselves from the empire, because we all understand that this war is the war against our identity, our culture, and the decolonization in the sphere of culture means that we all understand the Ukrainian contribution and the imperial propaganda and imperial appropriation of our heritage, and we have to do our homework the best possible. We have to understand the essence of Ukrainian culture, what they tried to cut off us, what they tried to destroy within the centuries of Russian imperial power, imperial authority, what we have to bring back to us, starting from Cossack Barocco and ending with Malevich and all the 20th century heritage. We have to have a very good education. We have to understand what Ukrainian culture is, was the popular culture, which is the part of all this educational process. So now it's urgent to learn the Ukrainian culture and talk about its history. Well, what is it to play Malevich? Well, it's horrifying because it's a high level of responsibility, and during the full-scale invasion, your view, your perception of the world is different, and it's way more sharp, which results in a high level of responsibility, the realization of personality, which changed the world art. And I'm still horrified, really. I don't really know what's there, and I'm feeling like trembling inside. Okay, so about Malevich, I understand that one of the key challenges is to separate Malevich from the Russian cultural space, or at least to explain it. What are the challenges you're facing in this regard in Ukraine? What are the challenges that you're facing abroad? How are you successful in explaining it to people, in convincing them that he was the Ukrainian artist? Because I'm sure a lot of people didn't even know about that. Well, really, yeah, it's a complicated question. Because starting from 20th century, the identity of the people, and specifically of the artists, then it's not a mono-ethnic identity. It's not about bringing Malevich to the Ukrainian framework, but it's adding the Ukrainian identity to Malevich to explain him through the influences, through Ukrainian influence on him. Before the 24th of February, it was way more difficult to have this conversation, because the brand of this so-called Russian avant-garde, to which the name of Malevich is written in red letters, it works for Russian propaganda. Huge resources were invested by Russia to have an exhibition of Russian avant-garde in every European capital, where Malevich was in the first place. So, and it was only Russian identity which was demonstrated there, and our task was to add Ukrainian and Polish identity to Malevich. So we work with our colleagues to open those identities. We explained that a large part of his identity was related to Ukraine. It should be explained. It should be, this information, this idea should be communicated, delivered to the people. We did a lot of homework. We had publications, research. We have a lot of things explained to our colleagues abroad. We work on this topic through the literature, through movies, through other media. So we have a lot to talk about, and it's easier to talk. We are heard better. Maybe you have anything to add. What's interesting is the perception of this idea. For example, you come to the people of art in the West, like we want to inform you on a very important topic. The artist you knew, that Kazimir Malevich, he's not Russian, he's Ukrainian. Okay, how do you convince people? What are the phases they go through in the realization of that fact? Well, we already introduced some footage from our movie in France and Italy on the movie festivals, film festivals, and I was curious about seeing this reaction in the people. It's very noticeable. A lot of people really perceive Malevich as a Russian artist only. Some heard that he was from a Polish family, but nobody really knows about his Ukrainian connection, about his connection to Ukraine, and so far, for what I understood from Tetyana, the historians still have disputes over whether his mother was Polish or Ukrainian. So a lot of people don't know that he was born in Kyiv, that he worked in Kyiv. I've seen interest. Many people know Malevich in the West, and he is more appreciated in the West rather than in Ukraine. A lot of museums all across the world have his works, just like, for example, MoMA in New York. And until the very last moment, we could see those captions in the museums that he was identified as a Russian artist. but now we can see this information added that he was born in Kyiv, that he's a Ukrainian artist, and in my opinion it's one of the most provocative avant-garde artists, and the riddle, the conundrum of the black square, it remains actual. And what I want to add to our conversation is the discourse around the black square. It's more interesting than the black square itself and the suprematism. And after the emergence of suprematism, the perception of art and the philosophy of art changed itself, and people learned to interpret the art. I think that now the war and those historic parallels, they give me as the director the opportunity to start my discourse. And that discourse is obvious. It's about our identity, about our desire to survive as a people, about us fighting for our independence for the last 4 centuries. So I position the black square as the feeling of this fight for freedom, which continues in the 20th century. So talking about convincing other artists abroad, it's not the last piece of heritage that we're discussing here. And if we talk about something, the Russians most likely try to either oppose it. For example, if there is like a counter Malevich, so to say, do they try to leave it for themselves? Do they have any performances, any actions in this regard? Well, I think that someone close to Putin a couple of years ago commented the attempts of Ukrainians to put Malevich to their side. So it came that far that it was even voiced by some talking heads in Kremlin. So we understand how horrified they are. It's painful for them. Yes, it means for them to lose something that they are used to call theirs, that was already appropriated. And the things that started happening after the 24th of February, they absolutely push the ground from under their feet. And there are processes that started that will recreate their the studios of Russian studies to the studios of Ukrainian studies or Slavic studies. Now that we have these circumstances, all the phenomena, all the notion of Russian avant-garde, it started crumbling, it's falling apart, because everybody started understanding that this brand of Russian avant-garde, which was created, it has no foundation beneath it, and there are trends of transition to new formulations. This brand of Russian avant-garde, it will not be used anymore. It's our victory in the art front, because there was a lot of resources invested in this brand, and it's a very long and complicated work, which someone has to do. I mean, the art historians, the culturologists, which are unfortunately in very small numbers, in insufficient numbers in Ukraine. It should be way more of them. And every museum, we have to talk about it. With every museum, why, for example, the gates of Kyiv, Peshchersk, Lavra, why they're the piece of Ukrainian heritage or not Russian, as they are used to say, when they say that it dates back to century 18th, when Kyiv was a part of Russian Empire. So that work is moving on, and we have very significant changes already. Questions on the floor, please. Victoria Shevchenko, Ukrinform. My question is when we will be able to see this movie in Ukraine, and maybe there are any agreements with some streaming platforms, streaming services, for showing that movie in their platforms. Well, we don't have any agreements so far. The movie is in post-production phase, and we hope to have the premiere in the summer or autumn 2023. And how it will be announced? Well, I think that it will be obviously through Ukrinform. Then I would like to ask for more details about the cultural front and the lack of culturologists or culture ambassadors, because we really have a very small number of people who know about the modern Ukrainian arts, who are ready to promote it and who are ready to protect it and promote it abroad. What should be done to break this situation? Well, we are in the area of cultural policies now. Well, there's one recipe. Good education and investments in culture. We have to educate the generation of people who would do it professionally. For example, in one British museum, in the British Museum alone, there are 600 curators who take care, who work on their collections. In the biggest Ukrainian museum, it's probably 10 curators like this. It's just for comparison. So how many intellectual resources are invested in this area? But those people who work in our museums, they work for a lot of years. They invest themselves in that area. They do a tremendous job, and those achievements, the results they're getting within this just 1 year alone, it's thanks to some colossal incessant work of those people. But should we have 10 times more of this, we would be able to do even more. All right, so maybe the last question: which will be the promo program? You've been shown the footage, some excerpts from the movie. So what was the reaction? And are you going to do more promotion abroad? Well, the promo will begin after the premiere. We want it to happen in an international film festival. I don't know where will we be invited. I cannot say it so far, but as soon as we know it, we will start the promotion campaign, and the Ukrainian premiere will be announced. And we actively work to also make the immersive exhibition of Kazimir Malevich along with the premiere is for the familiarization of the spectators, specifically for the youth. Well, is everybody going to draw the black squares? Well, if there are some interactive structures, well, maybe they will be able to enter the black square or go beyond the square as a shape. Well, nobody can prohibit to anybody of us to draw a black square, so no one can stop us on this way. So maybe for the promotion of the movie, everybody has to draw their black square. Well, all right, we'll be wrapping up. We were talking about Kazimir Malevich, about his Ukrainian part and his influence on the world culture, and we're continuing our work. See you shortly.